Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff, and welcome to another episode of Doctor Who Revisited. This is a series I'm running from now until the Doctor Who anniversary specials in about a month's time. Exciting. Where I look back at a classic Doctor Who serial and just talk about it, basically. I'm trying to go for not the obvious ones, not the big blockbuster serials that everyone loves, just looking at some of the ones that perhaps have been overlooked over the years or just form part of the show's canon, which aren't as well regarded as the classic stories. So far, I had to start with An Unearthly Child, and what a hot potato that's become over the last few days. For those who don't know, the BBC are dropping, as they call it these days, the entire back catalogue of Doctor Who on iPlayer on the 1st of November, and that includes all the classic Doctor Who stories. It includes all the spin-offs, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, and Class. Anyone remember that? That's all coming to iPlayer. It's something Russell T Davies has wanted to do since he came back to Doctor Who. He wanted to have it all in one place, a catalogue of Doctor Who's history, because of course BBC iPlayer already has the 21st century version of Doctor Who. But if you want to see the classic series, you either have to buy the Blu-rays or DVDs, which I would recommend because then you've got them permanently, or you have to check in at BritBox, either through BritBox itself or ITVX, which also has BritBox content. That has the old series there, but now it's all going to be in one place, except for that first serial, which I talked about in the first episode of Doctor Who Revisited, An Unearthly Child, and its associated episode written by Anthony Coburn, because of a bit of a fuss being kicked up by Anthony Coburn's son, Steph Anthony Coburn. It's a long, complicated, and not very pleasant story, really. Basically, Anthony Coburn's son alleges that his father was treated appallingly by the BBC over the years, that Anthony Coburn created the TARDIS, created the acronym for the TARDIS, created the idea of the TARDIS as a police box, and he's trying to hold the BBC to ransom, saying that various copyright reasons they don't have the right to show those first episodes, and at the moment that's the way it's looking. Those episodes aren't going to be available on the iPlayer, which is a shame. It's the anniversary year. It would be nice to see Russell T Davies' wish to have everything out there fulfilled, but it's not going to be the case. And for people who perhaps would like to see old Doctor Who from the beginning, what there is of it, because there's a lot of stuff missing for the black and white years, they're not going to get a chance to see where it all started. They will probably know because that first story's been screened several times. It's been available on different formats, but it's just a shame that this vital part of the Doctor Who puzzle isn't going to be available because of the eccentricities of one rather bitter man. But there we are. I think the BBC are bigger than him. Hopefully it will resolve itself one way or the other. So, so what I'm doing in this series, anyway, as I said, is looking at a classic Doctor Who serial that's not as well regarded, not as well viewed. And for this episode, I'm pitching up at the Jon Pertwee years, looking at the Mutants, which was screened in 1972 as part of the 9th series of Doctor Who. And I would say this is one of only, say, 3 Doctor Who serials that aren't very good. The others being The Time Monster, unfortunately from the same season, and The Monster of Peladon from Jon Pertwee's last season. Not a bad serial, but it's a sequel to The Curse of Peladon from 1972, from the same season as The Mutants, but it's stretched out to 6 episodes and it's just a bit dull, even though it's got the Ice Warriors in it. Time Monster is half a good story that then falls apart when we have all this unconvincing stuff in Atlantis. But I'm not talking about those today, I'm talking about The Mutants. 6-part story by Bob Baker and Dave Martin from season 9 in 1972. This is one of those serials where Barry Letts, the producer, and Terence Dicks, script editor, had contrived this quite clever idea to get the Doctor out of his exile on Earth by having the Time Lords using him as a sort of a secret agent to carry out missions that they themselves didn't really want to get involved with. And in fact, I think if you look at it, that could even tie in with the Timeless Child and the Division stuff that we've had from Chris Chibnall's era. The Time Lords using somebody who had already been an agent for the Time Lords, although he didn't know it, using him again as an agent. I think, this stuff can tie together quite well if you stop and think about it and don't get too angry about the Timeless Child. So anyway, the Doctor, Jon Pertwee, is on exile on Earth working for UNIT. His companion is Joe Grant, and he's in his laboratory, and this black box appears. It's been sent by the Time Lords. It can only be opened by the person who it's intended for. So the Doctor and Joe set off in the TARDIS, which is taken by the Time Lords, to a space station orbiting the planet Solos. Who does the box belong to? There's a lot going on in this story. There's a lot of stuff about colonialism and the English, the British Empire spreading out across the world and flattening other cultures and taking over and dominating other cultures. Because here, the human race is doing that. It's not exactly colonised, but it has dominated this planet Solos for hundreds of years, and it's about to pull out and let the Solonians get their independence. But there are forces at work on the space station. There's the Marshal, played by Paul Whitson-Jones. He's got this plan to turn the atmosphere into Solos into something breathable for humans, even though at this point the Earth Empire is contracting slightly and humanity is pulling out. We get the natives of Solos who are rebelling against the rule of the humans, and they've also got their own personal physical issues because these creatures that roam the planet, which are mutants, they are in fact the true form of the Solonians. This is what they become. They mutate into these, they have been described as scampi, these sort of ant-like creatures, a very good creature design. And the Doctor is torn between the two factions, really. He appears to be working on Solos on the technological side, but then he allies himself with the rather more primitive Solonians, and there's the usual escapes and captures. Joe gets carried away and the Doctor's trying to rescue her. There's a lot going on in this story, but it's actually better than I thought it was going to be. It's not a great story, but I think what it demonstrates is Doctor's willingness to go way beyond what he can really achieve. There's a lot of locations, there's a lot of settings. It's a very ambitious storyline. You've got all the sets of Solos, the corridors, the sort of computer laboratory area where the Doctor's working. You've got all the stuff set on the planet itself. Very good location film, in particular in episode 3. It was filmed at the Chislehurst Caves on the outskirts of London, and by the judicious use of sort of coloured lighting and lots of smoke, it really looks like a sort of a hostile alien landscape. And you've got these sort of brittle bushes and things that the soldiers are fighting their way through. It does look like a very hostile, unpleasant, cold and forbidding alien landscape. But the cave stuff is particularly good. But the problem is, it isn't a story that engages all that well. I think because we're used to seeing the Doctor on Earth, seeing him back in space again, it's a bit jarring. And I think it all harkens back to what Russell T Davies has always said about alien planet stories. It's very hard to sort of invest and care in them. So you have to have a human element to it. It's just, of course, here we've got, by virtue of these imperial sort of colonialism type thing. It's a slightly clumsy metaphor, if you like. It sort of points fingers quite bluntly at imperialism and British colonialism. But I think it's at 6 episodes, it outstays its welcome a little bit. I can't not mention some of the performances are a little on the shaky side. I mean, I'm going to have to single out Rick James, who plays one of the main two guards, Cotton and Stubbs. Christopher Cole, I think, plays Stubbs, and Rick James plays Cotton. It's not a great performance. It's a very wooden performance, is the only way I can put it. And every time he's on screen, it sort of hits you in the face that this isn't a good performance. Which is a shame, because everybody else is doing their best in a sort of a pseudo-Shakespearean way with this slightly stodgy dialogue to make it all work and make it all flow. But I think I admire the ambition of it. I admire the ambition of the BBC making this space opera type story on the funds available to Doctor Who at the time. The effects aren't bad. The spaceship effect is quite good. There is a lot of fringy CSO stuff, particularly when we get into the caves. There are scenes involving a character called Sondergaard. There's a lot of fringy CSO, which was a feature of 1970s Doctor Who, which is unfortunate because green screen has come on so far in the years since then. Now we just take it for granted that things are green screen. We don't have this sort of colour separation overlay fringing that we had in the 70s and often tore you out of the stories. I think probably the worst example of that is the Green Death, where the Doctor and Joe are on this little boat type thing paddling through a cave full of maggots, and there's just fringing all around them, and you think, well, that doesn't convince. And you get a few of those scenes here in these cave sequences. On the plus side, however, Jon Pertwee again is magnetic as the Doctor. I mean, he really throws himself into this stuff. He sort of cares about the situation, he cares about the people, cares about Joe, desperate to get back to her. And I think it works quite well that they're separated for a significant part of the story. But he, as Tom Baker once said, he glitters. Jon Pertwee glitters throughout the thing, and I just love that sort of velvety jacket cloak type thing. It's a classic Doctor Who image, and I think no matter how weak some of his stories may have been, and there are only a couple of weak ones, this being one of the weakest, he is watchable all the way through. You're sort of fascinated by him, and he is the hero figure. So it's not as bad as I remember from the last time I watched it, but it is too long and it is a bit dull and it gets boring, and it's hard to invest in the characters when some of the acting performances aren't as good as they need to be to really lift it and carry it. So yeah, it's probably one of the three clunkers of the Pertwee era, but I'm glad I've watched it again, reassessed it, and I'm glad that it's not as drab as I thought it was. And I think, as I say, watching it now, you admire the craft of what they tried to do. There's lots of big stuff. There's some stuff that doesn't work, but it's always the way with Doctor Who. So that's The Mutants, which is available on the Season 9 Blu-ray set of Doctor Who. It's also available on BritBox via ITVX and will be available next month on BBC iPlayer. The Mutants gets from me, I'm going to give it 5.5 out of 10. I think it's slightly better than the halfway mark, and I give it the extra half probably because of the effort of doing something as ambitious as this on a tiny 1970s TV budget. Right, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I also hope you're enjoying the Ranking the Doctors series, which is running at the moment. There's one more episode to go, which should be uploaded probably next week. I mean, I'm tempted to sort of rush through it and get it out there, but I'll put that up probably sometime next week. More from the Doctor Who Revisited coming up soon. Obviously, Tom Baker is coming up next, and I haven't decided what that is yet. But any suggestions for any Tom Bakers you'd like me to watch? I know I've had some suggestions already, but leave a comment down below. And I'll see you in the next week or so. More stuff, non-Doctor Who stuff coming as well. Until I see you next time. Hey, keep taking the stuff.